What is the fault tolerance in ADF? What will happen if your job fails after running 3 hours and it's supposed to complete in another 10 minutes? How can you handle this scenario? How do you handle the corrupted data in ADF? How to handle partial load failures in ADF? How to avoid reprocess the same data or same files again in ADF? Hello. Hi guys. Welcome to the channel. I hope everyone are doing great. I'm also doing good. So today we can see one of our subscriber question. So one of our subscriber has sent one question to us and we can try to solve that question. So first we can read that question. Can you make a video on partial load failure and need to load only failed records again when we rerun the ADF? Okay. So seems kind of a scenario like when we are trying to process some 100 records, out of the 100 records, out of the 100 we need to the target has got loaded only 50 records and remaining 50 records are failed records. So when we rerun the pipeline, we have to load only these 50 records. So how can we do that? So before answering this question, we need to understand few concepts. One is like fault tolerance. So what is mean by the fault tolerance? So fault tolerance is a property. It tells that though pipeline has some failures in the activities or in the pipeline, and that pipeline has to load the data to the target and pipeline has to get success. So that is nothing but fault tolerance. At any cost, pipeline needs to get success. So that is about the fault tolerance. So in the ADF, we have a copy activity. So this copy activity, you see, this is copy activity. So in the copy activity, we have a feature something like a fault tolerance. So this fault tolerance can provide you basically two options. One is like fail. So in case of any corrupted data or any invalid data that it encounters, then it will simply fail that pipeline. And the next one is skip. So if any error files or error records that it will find, it will skip those records and it will process the data. If you choose the skip, that means your pipeline is fault tolerance. But if you choose the fail, then there is no problem with the partial loads because your pipeline can get failed itself. It won't process the data again. Okay. So let's see what will happen if a job fails after running 3 hours and fails. Let's say a simple use case like you are trying to process 60 GB of the data in the ADF and it loaded to the target like 50 GB. Okay, and it ran almost 3 hours. Have another 10 minutes, this job is going to complete. Okay, so in this case the job has failed. What will happen? So by default with the ADF behavior is it will try to load all the 60 GB of the data 60 GB of the data again from start to end. This will again take 3 or 3.5 hours. So this is actually a time consuming process. So how can you handle this scenario in the real time? So how can we handle this scenario? So instead passing all the 60 GB at once, we can try to divide 60 GB into smaller files, something like 1 GB of each. Like we have total 60 partitions. Okay, so these 60 partitions we can try to process it using the for loop, and inside the for loop we can keep this copy activity. So every time it will take one file and it will process the file and it loads the target data. So once it loads the target data, we also keep maintaining something like a configuration or audit file. So this file has details about what are all the partition that it has processed successfully. Okay, so likewise we can continue. And at any point of time, if any one particular partition got failed, we can also have another option, that in the retry option. Okay, so we can keep as many retries as possible. If it is something like a network issue, so those issues will be resolved with the retry option. So if you can retry, it will retry only that activity alone, so that it will get success and it will resume the operation without failing the pipeline, entire pipeline. So these two options are available. Okay, so even if it failure, what we can do is like how we are going to handle the CDC data in ADF. So CDC data we are going to handle in a similar case. We have something like a audit table where we'll maintain all the data, something like a primary key of source or last fetched timestamp. Okay, large fetched timestamp. So these details we can maintain it in an audit table. So using this audit table, we'll load it into the lookup table, and we'll get the data from the lookup table, the max data or max timestamp, and with that we can try to query the source, and we'll get the data, only changed data, and we'll process. So the same concept is applying here. So since we have an audit table, we have to design our pipeline in such a way that first it has to go to the audit table and get the latest partition, and we need to identify what are the partition that we need to process, and then we'll process only that partitions. So with this design, we can avoid this problem. Okay. After 3 hours, we can still left to process only the unprocessed files we are going to process. Okay. The next thing is how to handle corrupted data. So here I say in the copy activity, we have something like a skip file, right? Like if we have a files or something like a corrupted files, we have an option to skip it. So we can skip, and also we can load it into stumps staging folder. Okay, so we have a concept blob where we can create some folder, and inside the folder these all files will be moved it. So once your pipeline has ran and we left with only the corrupted files in the same folder, and we can try to process these files again by moving it into the source path. Okay, so that's how we can handle. The next thing is how to handle partial load failures. As I said here, two things we need to maintain here. One thing is your target should be idempotent. What does it mean? Like whenever how many times that your pipeline run, your target shouldn't change. Your target should has a consistent data. If your target is something like a RDBMS database and you are following the upset mechanism, then your target would be idempotent. Okay, upset mechanism. And the next thing is we have to apply the retry mechanisms. So using this, we can handle this partial load failures. And with this approach, okay, how to avoid reprocess the same data and files. I already explained in this example, right? So we have to capture that processed file using the audit table or configuration files, and we use this lookup activity. And first we'll try to read this lookup activity, and based on it, we have to choose which files that we need to process. Okay, so this is how we can handle these things if it is a database. So let's say we have some files are available. How we are going to handle this one? So how are you going to handle with the files? If it is like files are some other activity other than the copy activity. Let's say for any activity, it can comes with 4 different options. Okay, success, failure, completion, and skipped. Like you can choose, if the pipeline or activity got success, what activity need to run. If it is failed, what activity need to process. So we can choose this unfailed. Like if the activity got failed, we can choose this one, and we can load the corrupted records or corrupted files. We can capture that, and we can load it into some table or some file. So we'll consider only this file, and we'll try to reprocess only this file. With the help of this the statuses options, we can able to handle the partial load failures or to capture the failed records. So if you like the content, please give a like, and if you have any doubts or anything, please add it in the comment section below. Thank you.